Okay, good morning, class. In today's lecture, we'll know something about physiology of balance and differential diagnosis of vertigo. On the one diagnosis, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, we'll be discussing this BPPV. First, let's start with the physiology of balance. Now, the objective of human being being a biped, unlike the quadrupeds like animals, the main reason for us is not to fall. Human being walking on 2 feet, being able to walk on 2 feet, balancing themselves has a very big survival benefit and makes us superior by letting our two hands free to use the tools and weapons. So the purpose of the human body is not to fall, and there is a system mechanism how humans do it. Okay, just see this divider. It cannot stand on its own. And about this dog can stand on its 2 feet for some moment only. But for the humans, this woman can walk for as much time as she wants. So this is the difference between an inanimate and in also animate objects between animals, quadrupeds, and the human beings. They are able to walk on 2 feet. They can balance on this very sharp heel shoes. Now, how do we maintain the balance? Now, to maintain an accurate balance, for accurate control, we require accurate information from different sensory inputs. There are different sensory organs in human being involved in the balance, and the most important one, the sensory input comes from the vestibular system. The second one, this is also very important, visual system. We get the information, sensory input from visual system also, and also from the proprioceptive systems in our muscle tendons and joints. They send us information about the tension in these joints and these muscle tendons, and also from the cutaneous sensations. We get all these sensory inputs, we process this, and we maintain the balance using all the information from these systems. Now, vestibular system, the anatomy of vestibular system consists of peripheral apparatus, central processing system, and motor output system. This peripheral sensory apparatus, these are the sensory organs, the sensors which sends us the information. It detects and relays information about the head's angular and linear velocity or acceleration to the central processing system. The movement of head, whether it be angular like rotatory movement or the linear movement or the head tilt, all these information is sent to the central processing system by the peripheral apparatus. And also the orientation of the head with the respect to the gravity, this information is sent to central system by the peripheral sensory apparatus. Central processing system, what does this central processing system does is processes information from all the sensors in conjunction with all other inputs, the other inputs like visual inputs and inputs from the proprioceptive organs and the cutaneous sensations, and also the movement of head in space. They process all this informations together. And the motor output system, this control is delivered through the motor output system. It generates compensatory eye movements, compensatory body movements to prevent the fall during a static or the dynamic state, whether the body is moving or it's stable. It just delivers this output impulses to the muscles to maintain the posture and maintain the eye fixture and the posture of head by the fine adjustments done by this central processing system. Now, peripheral apparatus of vestibular system consists of the sensory system organs, consist of the membranous labyrinth. We have bony labyrinth and membranous labyrinth. Membranous labyrinth is housed inside the bony labyrinth, also called the vestibule. So we have 3 semicircular canals and the 2 otolith organs consisting this peripheral apparatus. The semicircular canals and otolith organs are part of membranous labyrinth, not the bony labyrinth, but the membranous labyrinth. Now, 3 semicircular canals, the otolith organs in this utricle and the saccule. We'll discuss one by one. And all these impulses generated by these organs, semicircular canals, and the utricle and saccules, they pass through the vestibular nerve. There's two part of vestibular nerve, superior and the inferior vestibular nerve. Superior vestibular nerve carries this information from the utricle and the anterior and the posterior semicircular canal, while the inferior vestibular nerve carries information from the saccule and the posterior semicircular canal. Three semicircular canals. Basically, we can divide the semicircular canals in two parts: horizontal semicircular canal and the vertical semicircular canal. Horizontal semicircular canal, there is only one horizontal semicircular canal, also called the lateral semicircular canal. The vertical canals oriented vertically are two canals: anterior canal or the posterior canal. Anterior semicircular canal is also called the superior semicircular canal. So there are three semicircular canals. And the sensory organs, just like the organ of Corti in the cochlea, the sensory organ in the semicircular canals are called crista ampullaris. Now, crista ampullaris is the sensory organ. It is housed in the dilated part of the semicircular canal. One end of the semicircular canal, each semicircular canal is dilated, and this dilated part of semicircular canal end is called ampulla, and this crista ampullaris is housed inside the ampulla of this semicircular canal. This is the crista. This whole thing is the crista ampullaris. Membranous labyrinth contains the endolymph, and it is floated inside the perilymph, inside the bony labyrinth. Now, just like in organ of Corti, the main sensory organ, this crista ampullaris, consists of hair cells and the supporting cells, and there is a gelatinous mass called cupula which seals the ampulla. And these hair cells, they have stereocilia and kinocilia embedded in the cupula, the gelatinous substance. This is the cupula. This is the gelatinous substance called cupula. These are the hair cells. The hair cells are embedded inside the cupula, gelatinous mass, and this gelatinous mass obstructs fills this ampulla, so that any movement is detected. There's any movement of endolymph just moves this cupula, gelatinous seal inside the ampulla. And these hairs in hair cells are divided like stereocilia and kinocilia. There's a single kinocilia. This kinocilia is the most prominent, longest, and the thickest cilia, and the other is stereocilia. This kinocilia is surrounded by the other stereocilia, and these are embedded in the gelatinous substance cupula. And the characteristic of this crista ampullaris is that the hair cells in each crista are oriented in the same direction. It has the unidirectional orientation in crista ampullaris. This is the cupula, gelatinous substance, hair cells. These are the cilia, stereocilia, kinocilia. In this crista ampullaris housed in the ampulla of each semicircular canal. Now hair cells features, there's one single kinocilium, the largest cilia, and others stereocilia, 60 to 100 in numbers. They are progressively shorter away from the kinocilium. As they reach the kinocilium, they are longer, and the cilia are connected to each other and to the kinocilium by the tip links. This is the electron microscopy of this cilia, hair cells. This is the hair cells, these are the cilia, the thickest one, but this is the largest and the longest one is the kinocilium. Others are stereocilia, 60 to 100 in numbers, attached to each other with tip links. The movement of this cilia will generate the electrical impulses, causes the depolarization of the hair cells. When the cilia moves towards the kinocilium, there's the excitation or the depolarization of these hair cells. And when it moves away, the stereocilia move away from the kinocilium, there's the inhibition or the hyperpolarization of the hair cells. Two types of hair cells, type 1 and type 2. And as shown in this figure, and this is supporting cells, hair cells embedded in supporting cells, the efferent nerves, all they go through the vestibular nerve. So hair cells, the characteristic of these hair cells in the crista ampullaris, unlike organ of Corti, is that they continuously are firing. They are firing. There is a basal rate of firing of action potentials. So when stereocilia bend towards the kinocilium, it gets depolarized and the discharge rate, the firing rate increases. Similarly, when the stereocilia bend out from kinocilium, the discharge rate decreases. There is always a basal firing rate. There is only increase and the decrease according to the movement of the stereocilia. This is the neutral, polarized hair cell is normal. When movements toward the kinocilium, it is depolarized. The frequency of action potential and the firing rate is higher. Similarly, hyperpolarized is the opposite occurs. Now here, just like in cochlea or the transducers, they generate the mechanical movement of the cilia to the electrical impulses. And the characteristic of these hair cells are they have very, very high degree of directional sensitivity. When they move towards the kinocilium, it's activated, excited, away, inhibited. There is no other option. So it has a very high directional sensitivity and also slow adaptation. You keep on exciting the hair cells again and again, it adapts very slowly. The firing rate, increase in firing rate persists. And highly sensitive to mechanical stimulation, the faintest, the slowest movement of the endolymph is detected by these hair cells. They are highly sensitive to mechanical stimulation. Now, the semicircular canals, the crista ampullaris in semicircular canals, crista ampullaris are the sense organs of the semicircular canals. They detect the rotatory movement of the head. It doesn't detect the linear movement. It detects the rotatory movement. When there is the rotation of head in the vertical axis, the horizontal semicircular canal gets activated. Actually, the plane of rotation should coincide with the plane of the semicircular canal. The semicircular canal, which has the same plane as the plane of rotation, will detect the rotational movement in that plane. So when in the vertical axis, the rotation of head when occurs, just like in this no movement, when you say no, you mean no, this movement, the horizontal semicircular canal is activated. The crista ampullaris in horizontal semicircular canal gets activated. The lateral movement of the head, when you move the lateral, when you go towards the shoulder, you move your head towards the shoulder, then the posterior semicircular canal gets activated, and the anterolateral or posterolateral head movements, just like this yes movement, this will be detected by the superior or the also called anterior semicircular canal. So three different semicircular canal for the movement in the 3 dimension. Now there is another thing called coplanar pairing of semicircular canals. These the total 6 semicircular canals, 3 in each side, they are paired into 3 pairs in the same plane. The right lateral semicircular canal is in the same plane with the left semicircular canal. So right and left are coplanar, and left anterior and the right posterior semicircular canal are in the same plane. Similarly, left posterior and the right anterior are in the same vertical plane. Then what is the important significance of coplanar pairing? Because it allows for a push and pull mechanism, the balance mechanism of the 2 semicircular canal. When you move your head towards the right, the right side semicircular canal gets activated and the left side gets inhibited. So there is a balance of push and pull. So coplanar pairing is important to know this balance. So as shown in this picture, when you rotate your head towards the right side gets activated, the left side gets inactivated. So we have coplanar, another figure. Okay, so in this picture, these 2 lateral semicircular canals, they are paired in the same horizontal plane, but anterior semicircular canal and the posterior semicircular canal of the opposite side are in the same plane. It's indicated by this blue line. They are in the same plane. So these are the 2 pairs. Similarly, on the right side, these are the 2 pairs. Anterior of one side pairs with the posterior semicircular canal of the other side. So when you do this head movements like yes, no, This the anterior semicircular canal gets activated of one side and the other side gets inhibited. It's a coplanar pairing. Now, function of semicircular canals again is the same. The rotatory acceleration of the head is detected by the three semicircular canals. Head rotation in any direction. This is an example. When we rotate the head towards the left side, because of the inertia of the endolymph moves towards the right side. It activates the crista ampullaris of the left side. So the firing rate is increased on the left side ampulla. Similarly, on the opposite side, there is a decrease in firing rate. The movement occurs opposite. Stimulated by angular rotational acceleration, the angular velocity when there is an angular rotation in the same speed, this is not detected by the semicircular canals. Only the acceleration and the deceleration is detected by the semicircular canals. Movement of endolymph is caused by the angular rotation, bending of hairs towards the ampulla on one side and away from the ampulla on the other side. There's unbalanced discharge from the two sides, and the unbalanced rate of firing, this electrical impulses reach the brain, and the brain senses the rotation of the head. This is how brain knows about the rotation of the head. Now, this characteristic of semicircular canals, as I said, they only detect the beginning of the rotation and the end of the rotation. They do not detect the angular velocity, and they detect the changes in the rate of the rotation. That is, angular acceleration is detected by semicircular. Only angular acceleration, no angular velocity. We are also rotating ourselves with Earth. We do not, in a constant velocity, we do not detect the rotation of the Earth, but we can detect the rotation or angular acceleration of our head, or when we sit in merry-go-round. Okay. We can stimulate the semicircular canals in the rotation at high speed in rotatory chair in laboratory. We can stimulate it by instilling cold or hot air inside our external auditory canal, as in calorie test. Clinical signs: when this semicircular canal gets stimulated, we feel vertigo, and we might experience the nystagmus also. We can see the nystagmus also. This occurs due to the stimulation of the semicircular canals. Now, abnormal or pathological stimulation of semicircular canals, it causes nausea, sometimes vomiting, bradycardia, hypertension, sweating. This is all due to the stimulation of the autonomic nervous system when semicircular canals get pathologically stimulated. Now, let's come to otoliths. We talk about the angular movement, angular acceleration. Now let's talk about the linear acceleration or the linear movement, and also the orientation of the head regarding to the gravity. This is detected by the otolith. Otoliths are also called otolithic organ. These organs, otoliths, are housed in two otolithic component of vestibule, that is utricle and saccule. Okay. This utricle and the saccule are the two otolithic organs. Now, otolithic sensory structures in this utricle and saccule are composed of macula, otolithic membrane, and otoconia. This macula is equivalent to crista ampullaris in the semicircular canals. These hair cells lie in macula. Macula's hair cells, these cilia from the hair cells, they get embedded in gelatinous substance like cupula. It's called otolithic membrane, and on top of this otolithic membrane are the otoconia. The crystals, calcium carbonate crystals, lies on top of this otolithic membrane, and the otolithic membrane lies on top of macula. The hair cells, cilia, gets embedded in this otolithic membrane. Now, the movement of this gel membrane and the otoconia, because of the inertia, it causes the shearing movement of the hair cells. It causes the shearing movement of the cilia of the hair cells. and this leads to the sensitivity of the otoliths. This is the cause of sensitivity of the otoliths. This is the part of this is a schematic diagram of macula. These are the hair cells, supporting cells. These are the cilia, kinocilium and stereocilia. They are embedded in gelatinous otolithic membrane, and on top of this otolithic membrane, also sometimes called the constituent of the otolithic membrane, are the otoliths, calcium carbonate crystals, and these are housed in utricle and saccule. So we have two different types of macula, one utricular macula and the saccular macula. This is the electron microscopy of macula. These are the hair cells, supporting cells, cilia embedded in otolithic membrane, and these are the small calcium carbonate crystals, or also called otoliths. Otoconia, sorry, otoconia. Otoliths is the organ. This whole thing is otolith. Now, function of otolith. They respond to the linear head motion on acceleration. Only on linear acceleration they get activated, and also the tilt of the head, the static tilt, not the dynamic tilt, but the static tilt. When the head is on rest, but it's tilted in different angles, this is detected by the position of head is detected by the otolith functions. Now, these otoliths, macula and these two otolith organs, utricle and saccules, are in different planes. In utricle, it's in horizontal plane. In saccule, it is in vertical plane. So any movement in these planes are detected by the respective macula in the respective organs, saccule and the utricle. So this vertical, this horizontal movement in any direction, forward, side by side, or this diagonal direction in this horizontal plane is detected by the utricle, utricular macula, and in vertical orientation, just up and down movement is detected by the macula and the saccule, which are vertical orientation of macula. Okay, this is the macula in the utricle. So in horizontal oriented in the horizontal plane, these are the otoconias, the hair cells. So any movement will be detected by this macula in the utricle. The arrangement of macula in the utricle is in horizontal plane in the utricle, in the saccule it's in the vertical plane. Now in upright positions, in utricle macula in horizontal plane, hairs are pointing upwards, hair cell signal movements in any direction, but in that plane, any direction, forward, laterally, diagonally, any movements will be detected by these hair cells in a horizontal plane. So utricle is for horizontal movement. Do not forget this. Now, the static head tilt. This is macula, otolith organ in the utricle, in the horizontal plane. So when you tilt backward, this otoconia will move these hair cells towards backward. So this will be detected again the forward because of the gravity of this otoconia. These are heavier particles than the otolithic membrane. Similarly, acceleration, it moves backwards due to its inertia. Deceleration, it moves forward because of its inertia. So this movement is, this is for dynamic, this is for static head tilt. Everything is detected by the macula in the utricle. This picture also depicts the same thing. When patient bends, this person bends forward, otoconia tend to fall forward. This will activate these hair cells. Again, and the brain will detect the position of the head. Then same thing, this picture also. So same thing, force of gravity will tilt the otoconia and the cilia and the hair cells. Now in upright position, what happens in saccule? Head is vertical, macula is in vertical plane, hairs are pointing laterally pointing. So hair cell operate when, so the hair cell can be moved if there is only the vertical movement, in vertical movement. So just like in lift, you feel the acceleration and deceleration in the weightlessness in the lift as it moves downwards, or you feel more heavy when it moves upward. This is all detected by the macula and the saccule. But it operates when the patient is lying down, it becomes perpendicular, just like the macula in the utricle. So when patient is lying down and the patient is or the subject is being moved in any axis in that horizontal plane, now instead of the utricle, this saccule will get activated. Saccule will function for the movements, horizontal movements when the subject is lying down. So it does not has much function. The saccule doesn't have much function than experiencing the gravity or when the patient is lying down. Now in the difference in hair cells of macula, these hair cells are oriented in different directions. There is a difference in crista ampullaris. Crista ampullaris, the hair cells are oriented towards the kinocilium. They are oriented in a specific direction, unit direction, but in macula, they are oriented in different directions. So tilt or movement in any direction in the same plane is signaled. So this is a difference between the macula and the crista ampullaris. Now, ascending pathways of this vestibular system is the information from this sensory organs of crista ampullaris and the macula is carried by the vestibular nerve, superior and the inferior vestibular nerve, and it combines with the cochlear nerve, forms the eighth cranial nerve. Then these nerve fibers goes through the vestibular nucleus, then to the cerebellum, then to the vestibular nucleus, and this vestibular nucleus is present in the brainstem, and then goes to the vestibular cortex, and in the midway it also goes to the some fiber goes to the cerebellum, and also oculomotor complex, cranial nerve third, fourth, and sixth complex, and along with this vestibulospinal reflex and the vestibulo-ocular reflex, they coordinate this eye movement when the patient is in the subject is in the motion and trying to fix gaze. These are the ascending pathway. Now vestibulo-ocular reflex. Vestibulo-ocular reflex. This reflex, because of this reflex, we can move our eyes in the opposite direction to the head movement. When you fix a gaze in a particular object, external object, when you move your head but you try to fix the gaze, the eye moves in the opposite direction of the head movement, and the speed of the eye movement equals to the speed of the head movement, and this allows us to fix the object in our focus. We can focus that object even we move our head. This we can achieve through the vestibular ocular reflex. This head movement is detected by our peripheral apparatus semicircular canals, and the information goes through the vestibular nerve synapses with the this vestibular nuclei. From vestibular nuclei, it goes to the nucleus of the all these three oculomotor nerves: oculomotor, trochlear, and the abduction nerves, and it coordinates the movement of the eyeball and fixes the object of interest into the focus. This is vestibular ocular reflex as shown in this picture. From the vestibular system, it goes to vestibular nerve, vestibular nuclei, then to this three nuclei of this three cranial nerves responsible for the movement of the eye: oculomotor third, fourth trochlear, and the sixth abduction nerve. Sorry for the interruption. Now, this is how vestibulo-ocular system occurs, and the ascending pathway We have the vestibular cortex, just like visual auditory cortex, that senses the vertigo or the movement of the head, both linear and the rotation, and also the interprets the position of the head. Now the function of the cerebellum in the vestibular system is that it monitors the vestibular performance. It fine-tunes the function of the vestibular system. It also readjusts central vestibular process of the static and dynamic postural activity. Cerebellum refined by cerebellum, and cerebellum also modulates this vestibulo-ocular reflex and also the vestibulospinal reflex. Now the output of the vestibular system, also called the descending pathways, the motor output after the information is sent to the brain and it is processed by the brain. Now the output occurs through the extraocular muscles. This is a part of vestibulo-ocular reflex to make the the object of interest into the focus. To keep it in the focus, we have this vestibulo-ocular reflex, and also through the vestibulo-spinal reflex, it maintains the certain through the spinal cord and the skeletal muscles, it generates the anti-gravity postural activity to cervical and trunk and lower extremity muscles, preventing the fall. To maintain the posture, it sends the motor outputs to the different antagonistic muscles of the trunk, neck, and the lower extremity. And also it prevents fall by this righting reflexes also occur. It defends against the gravity, prevents the fall by maintaining the position of the head and also the body with respect to the gravity. Now vestibulospinal reflex generates compensatory body movement to maintain head and the postural stability, thereby preventing the falls. These are antagonistic muscles: abdominis, paraspinalis, hamstring, quadriceps, gastrocnemius, and tibialis anterior. If you push a person, the person will resist the fall by the contraction of the abdominalis, quadriceps muscles. Similarly, opposite happens when you push this person backwards. So preventing fall by this contraction of this anti-gravity muscles is performed through the vestibulospinal reflex, preventing the fall. So overall vestibular system occurs, there is the output, stimulus, head motion, angular acceleration, head motion, linear acceleration, and the head position gravity. This angular thing goes through the semicircular canals, detected by the semicircular canals. Saccules and utricle detects the linear and the head position. They convert, these are the transducers. Semicircular canals has crista ampullaris, saccular and utricle has macula. They transduce this mechanical movement into the electrical impulse, and it's processed in the central nervous system. Central nervous system takes input from other sensory organs like visual sensory inputs, proprioceptive sensors in the joints, and also the skin tactile inputs. It processes and it goes to the brain. It is perceived as orientation. The vestibular cortex detects the orientation of the head. It detects, okay, there is an angular movement or the linear movement, and the other two reflexes through spinal cord in the cerebellum. It maintains postural control, and the oculomotor system. Oculomotor system causes the compensatory eye movements to fix the object of interest into the focus. This is the output. This is the processing, and this is the input. This is how vestibular system works. This is also the same system through different nucleus. This is the vestibulo-ocular reflex, oculomotor nucleus, abducens nucleus, trochlear nucleus. This causes the fixation movements of the eyeball according to the movement of the head, compensatory movement of the eyeball. Vestibular, cerebellar, there are different reflexes. Again, it is the same thing, the sensory processing and the output. Okay, this is the example of the vestibulospinal reflex, the anti-gravity reflex, the postural reflex to prevent the fall. In this patient, when the bed is tilted towards the right side, the patient prevents the fall by maintaining readjusting the posture toward the left side. But in this patient which has a defective vestibular system, this patient cannot maintain the posture. So it has a defective vestibular spinal reflex. This is intact vestibular spinal reflex. This is the impaired vestibular spinal reflex. Okay. This complex type of movements, activities without falling. This is all due to because of our vestibular spinal system. This complex activity without falling. In these rotational movements, semicircular canals are being activated. The brain processes and the output to the different muscles, preventing the falls. Now, this is a sheer example of vestibular spinal reflex, and the vestibulo-ocular reflexes is shooting an arrow from the moving horse to a target. He fixes his focus. He focuses to this target because of the vestibulo-ocular reflex, and he maintains the posture of his body because of the vestibular spinal reflexes. So this is a very complex system, allowing human beings to do very complex balancing maneuvers, and also the focusing the interest, object of interest, keeping it in our focus during complex movement. Okay, now let's go to the next topic, vertigo. We'll go very quickly. Okay, what is vertigo? Vertigo is the sensation or the illusion of spinning movement, and this occurs because of the asymmetrical firing of the two vestibular systems. Okay, vertigo. Vertigo is just a symptom. It's just indicative of one of the combination of causes. There are many causes for vertigo. This is just a symptom of other underlying disease process. Now, this vertigo, the acute vertigo, we call it acute vestibular syndrome, the acute onset of spinning sensation. Acute vestibular syndrome. This is characterized by the severe vertigo, severe sensation of the rotation. It is accompanied by nausea and vomiting. There is nystagmus, and there is postural instability. Patient has postural instability, cannot maintain his or her posture. So acute vestibular syndrome, there might be two causes. It might be peripheral or central. It is very important to differentiate between peripheral or the central acute vestibular syndrome. Now, what is nystagmus? It is rapid alternating movement of eyes. It may be spontaneous, or it may be in response to the continued rotation of the body. And this is very important. Nystagmus is primary diagnostic indicator in identifying the vestibular lesions. So this is the rapid alternating movement of eye is called nystagmus. Now, type of nystagmus, physiological nystagmus. Normally, nystagmus can occur when you try to move your eye extremely towards one side, extreme lateral gaze. It can cause the physiological nystagmus. Pathological nystagmus can be spontaneous, positional, or the gaze evoked. It can appear on a certain position, or it can appear on certain gaze. Gaze evoked, positional, or spontaneous. Now, nystagmus is labeled by the direction of the fast component. The fast component of the nystagmus, we label that nystagmus towards that direction. So when the eye is blinking very fast toward the right side, it is right-sided nystagmus. Now, central and peripheral cause can be differentiated by various methods. Now, in case of nystagmus, in peripheral acute vestibular syndrome, when the cause is in periphery, it's in the peripheral vestibular syndrome, semicircular canals, sacral surticals, or it is there is some problem in the nerves. It's called peripheral acute vestibular syndrome. The nystagmus is a mixed horizontal torsional. It appears to be horizontal, but little bit of rotatory. It flickers, it rotates, but in a horizontal direction, and always beats away from the right of the lesion, right side, from the side of the lesion. If the lesion is on the right side, the nystagmus will be on the left side. It beats towards the opposite direction of the lesion, and it increases with the gaze to the quick phase. The same thing, it is labeled, nystagmus is labeled to the quick component of the nystagmus. It is suppressed by the visual fixation. If you fix your, if you focus on certain object, it is suppressed. The nystagmus disappears. And when you lie down on the affected side or the affected ear, then the nystagmus increases, and also nystagmus increases on the head shaking. When head is shake, the peripheral vestibular system is activated, so there is increase in the nystagmus. But the saccades and the smooth pursuit, the continuous, repeated, the flickering movement, voluntary movement of eye, and the smooth pursuit when you pursue visually a certain slowly moving object, these things are preserved in peripheral acute vestibular syndrome. Now, primary position, nystagmus are graded in 3 grades: grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. If there is the beating of the nystagmus is on the same side, when there is nystagmus, when the patient gazes to the right side or the left side in the single direction, then it is called grade 1. And even in the primary position, even when the patient is looking forwards anteriorly, there is nystagmus still present, it's called grade 2. And when the nystagmus occurs when patient gazes to the opposite side, on all 3 gazes there is nystagmus, then this is called the grade 3 nystagmus. This occurs in peripheral nystagmus. Now, nystagmus in the central acute vestibular syndrome, the nystagmus changes the direction. Sometimes it flickers toward the right side, and after some moment, few seconds, it flickers to the left side, sometimes up and sometimes down. And this occurs continuously. This does not disappear when you have the visual fixation. And also when the vestibulo-ocular reflex is suppressed, this nystagmus does not stop. And also the impaired saccades and the smooth pursuit movements are impaired in the central cause when the lesion is in brainstem or in the brain. This is central nystagmus, right gaze, left gaze, primary position, everywhere the nystagmus occurs. Okay, this is an example of the central cause, the central acute vestibular syndrome. Just see the nystagmus, it is changing the direction. It is now flickering upwards, now towards the right side, then upwards again. So nystagmus, the direction of the characteristic of nystagmus is very important to differentiate the central and the peripheral cause. The first, this nystagmus is, the cause is the peripheral acute vestibular syndrome. Just see the nystagmus occurring on the right side. The fast component is towards the right side. It does not change the direction. It's in the horizontal and the torsional direction. Now, differentiation. How do you differentiate between peripheral and central cause of vertigo? Acute vestibular syndrome, peripheral, central. In peripheral, nausea is severe. Central, it's moderate. Imbalance is very mild. In peripheral, it's very severe. In central, hearing loss, there might be. It is common in peripheral. It's rare in central. Oscillopsia is the pendulum-like movement of the eye. Is mild in peripheral, severe in central. Neurological symptoms occur frequently in central, rare in peripheral. Compensation is rapid in peripheral and the slow in central. The vestibular compensation, the another peripheral vestibular when one side is affected, the other side compensates for the affected side. This is very quick in peripheral cause and slow in central cause. And hearing loss is because of the ear disease. Ear disease commonly cause this polystoma. It might get erode the lateral semicircular canal, causing the peripheral nystagmus. Now, peripheral vestibular disorders. These are the list of peripheral vestibular disorders: vestibular neuronitis, labyrinthitis, Meniere's disease, acoustic neuroma, fistula, and benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, BPPV. We will be discussing about BPPV in this class, so very shortly. Now, central vestibular disorders. The central causes might be vascular, like Wallenberg syndrome, lateral medullary syndrome. This is also called lateral medullary syndrome. Head injury, cerebellar infarct, all these are the central vestibular disorder. This causes central vestibular disorder. Also post-concussive syndrome, demyelinating disease, like, and the congenital causes might be because of the central vestibular disorders, demyelinating disease like multiple sclerosis. Now, BPPV sign and symptoms. The typical sign and symptoms of this BPPV, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo. There is sudden severe attacks of vertigo. It's a sudden and the severe, and this is precipitated by the certain head position and movement. Example, rolling over, neck extension, bending forward. These kind of movements will trigger the acute attack of vertigo, severe attack, and it lasts for few seconds, just for few seconds. And during the attack of the vertigo, there might be nausea, lightheadedness. Patient is very anxious and it tries to avoid movement, any head movements. The patient is very scared in this BPPV. And the characteristic of nystagmus, it differences between the BPPV and the other central vestibular lesion. The characteristic of the nystagmus in peripheral lesion is it is fatigable, it is unidirectional, parietal and torsional. Now, Dix-Hallpike maneuver. This is for the diagnosis of the posterior canal BPPV. This is a gold standard used to check for the presence of BPPV, especially of the posterior semicircular canal. The most common cause of BPPV occurs in the posterior semicircular canal. Now, the nystagmus induced by this test is an objective measurement from which we can determine the semicircular canal dysfunction and assess a response to the treatment. This maneuver not only detects the semicircular canal also, but helps us to assess the response to the treatment. Now, these are the criteria for the diagnosis of the posterior canal BPPV for this Hallpike test. There should be torsional linear rotator nystagmus, and this must be reproduced by the provocatory position with the affected ear down. The nystagmus has a latency period. It does not appear very quickly. It has a latency period of the 1 to 5 seconds. After the 1 to 5 seconds, the nystagmus appear, and the nystagmus has brief duration. This is also called the brief duration. After 5 to 30 seconds, the nystagmus stops, disappears, and the reversal of the nystagmus direction on returning to the upright position. When we return the patient in the upright position, there is the reversal of the direction of the nystagmus. And on repetition of this test, the nystagmus decreases and finally stops. This is also called fatigability. So fatigability, latency, unidirectional, linear, and torsional are these criteria for the Dix-Hallpike test. Now, the cause of the pathophysiology of BPPV. How does it occur? There are two conditions called cupulolithiasis and the canalolithiasis. In cupulolithiasis, this debris, probably the fragment of otoconia from the utricle. The otoconia in the macula of the utricle, they defragment from their surface and it enters the semicircular canal, which normally contains the endolymph. And from the semicircular canal, it goes to the ampulla and adheres, gets attached to the cupula. So certain movements will excite the cupula. It will increase the rate of firing in the cupula when it attaches to the cupula, this otoconia. Now, treatment for cupulolithiasis are certain repositioning maneuvers like Brand-Daroff exercises and Semon liberatory maneuver. All this maneuver will detach this otoconia from the cupula, and according to the orientation of the semicircular canal, we relocate this dislodged otoconia to its original location in the utricle. These are the different direction maneuvers. So this is Semon's liberatory maneuver. The otoconia in semicircular canal, we just with these different maneuvers, we reposition it into the utricle, its original location. Now, canalolithiasis, this is debris floating freely in the endolymph in the long arm of the posterior semicircular canal. In posterior semicircular canal, usually happens, most commonly occurring affected semicircular canal is posterior semicircular canal. This otoconia will freely float in the endolymph of the semicircular canal. This is called canal lithiasis. There is scapulolithiasis, this canal lithiasis. Treatment is canalith repositioning maneuver. So otoconia is repositioned. This maneuver is called Epley's maneuver. This has 84 to 90% remission rate. And we ask the patient to sleep in the upright position for single night. Now this is the picture of the Epley's maneuver. We position this head in different position to relocate the dislodged otoconia. Now we have videos, brief.
Normally, only with head movement does fluid within the inner ear also move, informing the brain that a head turn occurred. However, should a crystal called an otolith gets displaced into the posterior canal of the inner ear, BPPV dizziness occurs. Fluid movement occurs due to the crystal rather than head turns, causing the brain to think movement has occurred even though none has happened. The Epley maneuver is performed to treat this posterior canal BPPV by trying to get the loose crystal out of the canal. This maneuver is started by turning the head 45 degrees and the body laid back such that the head is extended about 20 to 30 degrees. If BPPV is present, eye twitching called nystagmus will occur. After 30 to 60 seconds, the head is turned 90 degrees to the opposite side and held for another 30 to 60 seconds. The head is then further rotated another 90 degrees, accomplished by having the patient turn onto their side, which is then held for another 30 to 60 seconds. At this point, the head should be turned 45 degrees from the horizontal. When performing this maneuver, another individual can help with these position changes. The maneuver is then completed by having the patient sit up. So what's going on with these position changes? Essentially, the head is moved in such a way to manipulate the crystal to fall towards the canal opening. With each position change, it takes about 30 to 60 seconds for the crystal to settle into the most dependent position in the canal. If turns are made before the crystal has a chance to settle, the crystal may fall back the wrong way and the maneuver will fail. It is also important that the head positions are angled correctly, or else the crystal will not settle to the correct position in the canal and the maneuver will fail. Also, if the position changes are done too slowly, the crystal may not settle quickly enough from lack of momentum and the maneuver will also fail. Once the crystal falls out of the canal, the dizziness should resolve if due to posterior canal BPPV.
Okay, Soumya Sharma, what about organ of Corti, its role in? Organ of Corti has no role in balance. Okay, organ of Corti has only role in the hearing. Now let's go for assessment. Otolith organs are saccular macula, utricular macula, crista ampullaris, and semicircular canals. The answer for otolith organs, the saccular macula and the utricular macula. Crista ampullaris is in semicircular canals. So the answer is A and B. Which semicircular canals are coplanar? Okay, another question from Shreya. Is only posterior semicircular canal affected in BPPV? No, the answer is no. Both the lateral semicircular canal and the anterior semicircular canal are also affected in BPPV, but most commonly, more than 80% is posterior semicircular canal. And this Epley's maneuver is just for the posterior semicircular canal BPPV. We have other maneuvers for lateral and the anterior semicircular canal BPPV. Okay, the answer for these semicircular canals, coplanar semicircular canals, left and left, right and left horizontal canals are coplanar. Right and left posterior canals, right and left superior canals, right superior and left posterior canals. On the superior and the posterior canals, they are coplanar with the opposite sides. Now, displacement of stereocilia towards the kinocilium causes hyperpolarization of hair cells, inhibition of firing rate, or the influx of potassium ions into the hair cells. Displacement of stereocilia towards the kinocilium will activation is the depolarization, and the firing rate is increase, and the influx of potassium ion into the hair cells the tip links will open the potassium channels, and the potassium ions enter the hair cells, causing the depolarization. So influx of potassium ions into the hair cells is the answer. Saccule and utricle detect all except angular acceleration, linear acceleration, static head tail, information about head position. Angular acceleration is the function of semicircular canals, not saccule and utricle. Except angular acceleration, all this linear acceleration, static head tail, head position, all are the jobs of saccule and utricle with the sensory organs called macula inside this saccule and utricle. Which one is true? In utricle, macula has vertical orientation. Utricle has horizontal orientation of macula, so this is false. In saccule, macula has horizontal orientation. Saccule has vertical orientation of macula, so this is also false. Hair cells are arranged in single direction in macula. No, this is false. In macula, hair cells are arranged in different direction, unlike crista ampullaris, where hair cells are arranged in a single direction. Utricle and saccule can detect linear acceleration in multiple directions. Yes, this is true. Utricle and saccule macula has orientation of hair cells in different directions, so it can detect the movement in the different direction, but in the same plane. In horizontal plane, utricle detects. In vertical plane, saccule detects. Now, vertical acceleration is experienced in elevator is sensed by. This is sensed by the saccular macula, which detects the vertical movements. Which one is peripheral vestibular disorder? Wallenbach syndrome, also called lateral medullary syndrome, is a central disorder. Cerebellar infarct is also central disorder. Meniere's disease and the BPPV are the peripheral vestibular disorders. All are features of peripheral causes of vertigo except severe nausea. Hearing loss is commonly associated. Rapid compensation, severe imbalance. Okay. Severe nausea, there is severe nausea and peripheral vertigo. Hearing loss is commonly associated. Yes, hearing loss is commonly associated in peripheral vertigo. Rapid compensation occurs in peripheral vertigo, but there is imbalance in peripheral cause of vertigo, but severe imbalance is a feature of the central cause. Duration of vertigo in BPPV is very short, 5 to 30 seconds, not even in minutes. Okay, this is a very good question. Why do we feel dizzy when we spin ourselves manually, but not with the spin of earth? When we spin manually, there is the starting of the spin, there is the end of the spin, there is an acceleration, angular acceleration. So that's why semicircular canal will detect our acceleration. Semicircular canal detects the angular acceleration, not the angular velocity. But with the spin of earth is spinning in the fixed velocity. It doesn't accelerate or decelerate. So we do not detect the spin of the earth. This is the reason. We'll come to the central vestibular disorder on next classes. So central vestibular disorder occurs when there is any lesion in the central nervous system, from the brainstem to the cerebellum or pons medulla, all occurs in cerebral brainstem, which the lesion occurs in the central nervous system. So when the lesion occurs in the central nervous system, the peripheral nerve, this vestibular system will send the impulses, but those simple impulses does not get transmitted or processed in the central nervous system. Just like it doesn't reach the from beyond the vestibular nuclei. If there is a infarction of cerebellum, then cerebellum cannot perform its function of fine-tuning this vestibular system, balance, and everything. Vestibular spinal reflexes, vestibular ocular reflexes will be hampered. So this happens in the central vestibular disorder. More questions? So certain terms you should not confuse. Crista ampullaris, cupula, macula, utricle, saccule, all these sound similar. You should know exactly what these words mean. Okay, crista ampullaris is the sense organs in the semicircular canal, just equivalent of organ of Corti in the semicircular canal. This is crista ampullaris. The equivalent of crista ampullaris in saccule and utricle is macula. Saccule and utricle are just the bulbs in the vestibule. Okay, so macula is inside this saccule and utricle, and the cupula is the gelatinous substance of the crista ampullaris, where this cilia of the hair cells are embedded. Similarly, macula is has also hair cells, otolithic membrane, otoconia. Okay. Thank you, class.